Chapter 8 of Potash and Perlmutter, Their Co-Partnership, Ventures and Adventures. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Potash and Perlmutter, Their Co-Partnership, Ventures and Adventures by Montague Glass. Chapter 8. "You carry a fine stock, Mr. Sheitless," Abe Potash exclaimed, as he glanced around the well-filled shelves of the Suffolk Credit Outfitting Company. "That ain't all the stock I carry," Mr. Sheitless, the proprietor, exclaimed. "I got also another stock, which I am anxious to dispose of it, Mr. Potash, and you can help me out maybe." Abe smiled with such forced amiability that his mustache was completely engulfed between his nose and his lower lip. "I ain't buying no cloaks, Mr. Sheitless," he said. "I'm selling 'em." "Not a stock from cloaks, Mr. Potash," Mr. Sheitless explained, "but a stock from gold and silver." "I ain't in the jewelry business neither," Abe said. "That ain't the stock what I mean," Mr. Sheitless cried. "Wait a bit, I'll show you." He went to the safe in his private office and returned with a crisp parchment paper certificate bearing in gilt characters the legend Texas Nevada Gold and Silver Mining Corporation. "This is what I mean it," he said. "Stock from stock exchanges. I paid $1 a share for this 100 shares." Abe took the certificate and gazed at it earnestly with unseeing eyes. Mr. Sheitless had just purchased a liberal order of cloaks and suits from Potash and Perlmutter, and it was, therefore, a difficult matter for Abe to turn down this stock proposition without offending a good customer. "Well, Mr. Sheitless," he commenced, "me and Morris Perlmutter, we do business under a co-partnership agreement, and it says we ain't supposed to buy no stocks from stock exchanges, and—" "I ain't asking you to buy it," Mr. Sheitless broke in. "I only want you to do me something for a favor. You belong in New York, where all them stockbrokers is. So I want you should be so kind and take this here stock to one of them stockbrokers and see what I can get for it. Maybe I could get a profit for it, and then, of course, I should pay you something for your trouble." "Pay me something!" Abe exclaimed in accents of relief. "Why, Mr. Sheitless, what an idea! Me and Morris would only be too glad, Mr. Sheitless, to try and sell it for you, and the more we get for the stock, the gladder we would be for your sake. I wouldn't take a penny for selling it if you should make $1 million out of it." "$1 million I won't make it," Mr. Sheitless replied, dismissing the subject. "I'll be satisfied if I get $10 for it." He walked toward the front door of the store with Abe. "What is the indications for spring business in the wholesale trade, Mr. Potash?" he asked blandly. Abe shook his head. "It should be good, maybe," he replied. "Only you can't tell nothing about it. Silks is the trouble." "Silks?" Mr. Sheitless rejoined. "Why, silks makes goods sell high, Mr. Potash, ain't it? Certainly, I admit you got to pay more for silk piece goods as for cotton piece goods, but you take the same % profit on the price of the silk as on the price of the cotton, and so you make more in the end, ain't it?" "If silk piece goods is low or middling, Mr. Sheitless," Abe replied sadly, "there's a good deal in what you say, but silk is high this year, Mr. Sheitless. So high you wouldn't believe me if I tell you what you got to pay twice it as much this year as 3 years ago already." Mr. Sheitless clucked sympathetically. "And if we charge the retailer twice it as much for a garment next year what he pays 3 years ago already, Mr. Sheitless," Abe went on, "we won't do no business, ain't it? So we got to cut our profits, and that's the way it goes in the cloak and suit business. You don't know where you are at no more than when you got stocks from stock exchanges." "Well, Mr. Potash," Sheitless replied encouragingly, "next season is next season, but now is this season, and from the prices what you quoted at me, Mr. Potash, you ain't going to the poorhouse just yet a while." "I only hope that you make more profit on the stock than we make it on the order you just give us," Abe rejoined as he shook his customer's hand in token of farewell. "Goodbye, Mr. Sheitless, and as soon as I get back in New York I'll let you know all about it." 2 days after Abe's return to New York, he sat in Potash and Perlmutter's showroom, going over next year's models as published in the Daily Cloak and Suit Record. His partner, Morris Perlmutter, puffed disconsolately at a cigar, which a competitor had given him in exchange for credit information. "Them cigars what Klinger and Klein hands out," he said to his partner, "has asbestos wrappers and Excelsior fillers, I bet you. I'd as lief smoke a kerosene lamp." "You got your worries, Morris," Abe replied. "Just look at them next year's models, Morris, and a little thing like cigars wouldn't trouble you at all. Silk, soutache, and buttons, they got it, Morris. I guess pretty soon them Paris people will be getting out garments trimmed with solitaire diamonds." Morris seized the paper and examined the half-tone cuts with a critical eye. "You're right, Abe," he said. "We'll have our troubles next season, but we take our profit on silk goods, Abe, the same as we do on cotton goods." Abe was about to retort when a wave of recollection came over him, and he clutched wildly at his breast pocket. "Holy smokes!" he cried. "I forgot all about it." "Forgot all about what?" Morris asked. "B. Sheitless of the Suffolk Credit Outfitting Company," Abe replied. "He gave me his stock in Pittsburgh last week, and I forgot all about it." "A stock!" Morris exclaimed. "What for a stock?" "A stock from the stock exchange," Abe replied. "A stock from gold and silver mines. He wanted me I should do it a favor for him and see a stockbroker here and sell it for him." "Well, that's pretty easy," Morris rejoined. "There's a lot of stockbrokers in New York, Abe. There's pretty near as many stockbrokers as there are suckers, Abe." "Maybe there is, Morris," Abe replied, "but I don't know any of them." "No?" Morris said. "Well, Sol Klinger of Klinger and Klein could tell you, I guess. I seen him in the subway this morning, and he was pretty near having a fit over the financial page of the Sun. I asked him if he seen a failure there, and he says no, but steel has went up to 70, maybe it was 80. So I says to him he should let Andrew Carnegie worry about that. And he says if he would have bought it at 40, he would have been in $30,000 already." "Who?" Abe asked. "Andrew Carnegie?" "No," Morris said. "Sol Klinger." "So I says to him I can get all the excitement I wanted out of auction pinochle, and he says—" "'Snough, Morris," Abe broke in. "I heard enough already. I'll ring him up and ask him in the name of the broker what does his business." He went to the telephone in the back of the store and returned a moment later and put on his hat and coat. "I rung up Sol, Morris," he said, "and Sol tells me that a good broker is Gunst & Baumer. They got a branch office over Hill, Arkwright & Thompson, the auctioneers, Morris. He says a young fella by the name of Milton Fiedler is manager, and if he can't sell that stock, Morris, Sol says nobody can. So I guess I'll go right over and see him while I got it in my mind." Milton Fiedler had served an arduous apprenticeship before he attained the position of branch manager for Gunst & Baumer in the dry goods district. During the 30-odd years of his life he had been in turn stock boy, clothing salesman, bookmaker's clerk, faro dealer, pool room cashier, and finally bucket shop proprietor. When the police closed him up he sought employment with Gunst & Baumer, whose exchange affiliations precluded any suspicion of bucketing, but who nevertheless did a thriving business in curb securities of the cat and dog variety, and it was in this particular branch of the science of investment and speculation that Milton excelled. Despite his expert knowledge, however, he was slightly stumped, as the vernacular has it, when Abe Potash produced B. Sheitless's stock, for in all his bucket shop and curb experience he had never even heard of the Texas Nevada Gold and Silver Mining Corporation. "This is one of those smaller mines, Mr. Potash," he explained, "which sometimes gets to be phenomenal profit makers. Of course, I can't tell you offhand what the value of the stock is, but I'll make inquiries at once. The inside market at present is very strong, as you know." Abe nodded, as he thought was expected of him, although inside and outside markets were all one to him. "And curb securities naturally feel the influence of the bullish sentiment," Fiedler continued. "It isn't the business of a broker to try to influence a customer's choice, but I'd like you to step outside." They were in the manager's private office. And look at the quotation board for a moment. Interstate Copper is remarkably active this morning." He led Abe into an adjoining room where a tall youth was taking green cardboard numbers from a girdle which he wore and sticking them on the quotation board. "Hello!" Fiedler exclaimed, as the youth affixed a new number. "Interstate Copper has advanced a whole point since 2 days ago. It's now 2 1/8." Simultaneously, a young man in the back of the room exclaimed aloud in woeful profanity. "What's the matter with him?" Abe asked. "They play him both ways." Fiedler corrected himself in time. "Occasionally we have a customer who sells short of the market, and then, of course, if the market goes up, he gets stung. He sustains a loss." Here the door opened, and Sol Klinger entered. His bulging eyes fell on the quotation board, and at once his face spread into a broad smile. "Hello, Sol," Abe cried. "You look like you sold a big bill of goods." "I hope I look better than that, Abe," Sol replied. "I make it more on the Interstate Copper in 2 days what I could make it on 10 big bills of goods. That's a great property, Abe." "I think Mr. Klinger will have reason to congratulate himself still more by tomorrow, Mr. Potash," Fiedler broke in. "Interstate Copper is a stock with an immediate future." "You bet," Sol agreed. "I'm going to hold on to mine. I'll go up to 5 inside of a week." The young man from the rear of the room took the 2 rows of chairs at a jump. "Fiedler," he said, "I'm going to cover right away. Buy me 1,000 Interstate at the market." Sol nudged Abe, and after the young man and Fiedler had disappeared into the latter's private office, Sol imported in hoarse whispers to Abe that the young man was reported to have information from the ground floor crowd about Interstate Copper. "Well, if that's so," Abe replied, "why does he lose money on it?" "Because," Sol explained, "he's got an idea that if you act just contrary-wise to the inside information what you get it, why, then you come out right." Abe shook his head hopelessly. "Pinochle, I understand it," he said, "and scat a little also, but this here stocks from stock exchanges is worser than chess what they play at in coffee houses." "You don't need to understand it, Abe," Sol replied. "All you do is buy 1,000 Interstate Copper today or tomorrow at any price up to 2.5, Abe, and I give you a guarantee that you make $2,500 by next week." When Abe returned to his place of business that day, he had developed a typical case of stock gambling fever, with which he proceeded to inoculate Morris as soon as the latter came back from lunch. Abe at once recounted all his experiences of the morning, and dwelt particularly on the phenomenal rise of Interstate Copper. "Sol says he guarantees that we double our money in a week," he concluded. "Did he say he would put it in writing?" Morris asked. Abe glared at Morris for an instant. "Do you think I'm making jokes?" he rejoined. "You don't got to put it in writing, Morris. It's as plain as the nose in your face. We pay $2,500 for 1,000 shares at 2.5 today, and next week it goes up to 5, and we sell it and make it $2,500, ain't it?" "Who do we sell it to?" Morris asked. Abe pondered for a moment. Then his face brightened up. "Why, to the stock exchange, certainly," he replied. "Must they buy it from us, Abe?" Morris inquired. "Sure they must, Morris," Abe said. "Ain't Sol Klinger always selling his stocks to them people?" "Well, Sol Klinger got his customers, Abe, and we got ours," Morris replied doubtfully. "Maybe them people would buy it from Sol and wouldn't buy it from us." For the rest of the afternoon Morris plied Abe with questions about the technicalities of the stock market until Abe took refuge in flight and went home at 5:30. The next morning Morris resumed his quiz until Abe's replies grew personal in character. "What's the use of trying to explain something to nobody what don't understand nothing?" he exclaimed. "Maybe I don't understand it," Morris admitted, "but also you don't understand it too, maybe, ain't it?" "I understand this much, Morris," Abe cried. I understand, Morris, that if Sol Klinger tells me he guarantees it I make $2,500, and this here Milton Fiedler, too, he also says it, and the young fella actually with my own eyes I see it buys this stock because he's got information from inside people, why shouldn't we buy it and make money on it, ain't it?" Morris was about to reply when the letter carrier entered with the morning mail. Abe took the bundle of envelopes, and on the top of the pile was a missive from Gunst & Baumer. Abe tore open the envelope and looked at the letter hurriedly. "You see, Morris," he cried, "already it goes up a 16th." He handed the letter to Morris. It read as follows: "Gentlemen, for your information, we beg to advise you that Interstate Copper advanced a 16th at the close of the market yesterday. Should you desire us to execute a buying order in these securities, we urge you to let us know before 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, as we believe that a sharp advance will follow the opening of the market. Truly yours, Gunst & Baumer, Milton Fiedler, Manager." "Well," Abe said, "what do you think, Morris?" "Think?" Morris cried. "Why, I think that he ain't said nothing to us about them gold and silver stocks of B. Shightless, Abe, so I guess he ain't sold them yet. If he can't sell a stock from gold and silver already, Abe, what show do we stand with a stock from copper?" "That Shightless stock is only a small item, Morris." "Well, maybe it is," Morris admitted, "but just you ring up and ask him. Then, if we find that he sold that gold and silver stock, we take a chance on the copper." Abe hastened to the telephone in the rear of the store. "Listen, Abe," Morris called after him. "Tell him it should be no dating or discount. Strictly net cash." In less than a minute Abe was conversing with Fiedler. "Mr. Fiedler," he said. "Hello, Mr. Fiedler. Is this you?" "Yes." "Well, me and Morris is about decided to buy 1,000 of them stocks which you showed me down at your store, at your office yesterday. Only Morris says, why should we buy them goods, them stocks, if he ain't sold that other stocks already? First, he says, you should sell them stocks from gold and silver, Mr. Fiedler, and then we buy them copper ones." Mr. Fiedler, at the other end of the phone, hesitated before replying. The Texas Nevada Gold and Silver Mining Corporation was a paper mine that had long since faded from the memory of every bucket shop manager he knew, and its stock was worth absolutely nothing. Yet Gunst & Baumer, as the promoters of Interstate Copper, would clear at least $2,000 by the sale of the stock to Abe and Mawruss. Hence, Fiedler took a gambler's chance. "Why, Mr. Potash," he said, "a boy is already on the way to your store with a check for that very stock. I sold it for $300, and I sent you a check for $275. $25 is our usual charge for selling 100 shares of a stock that ain't quoted on the curb." "Much obliged, Mr. Fiedler," Abe said. "I'll be down there with a check for $2,500. "All right," Mr. Fiedler replied. "I'll go ahead and buy the stock for your account." "Well," Abe said, "don't do that until I come down. I got to fix it up with my partner first, Mr. Fiedler, and just as soon as I can get there I'll bring you the check." 20 minutes after Abe had rung off, a messenger arrived with a check for $275, and Morris included it in the morning deposits which he was about to send over to the Kosciuszko Bank. "While you're doing that, Morris," Abe said, "you might as well draw a check for $2,500 for that stock." Morris grunted. "That's going to bring down our balance a whole lot, Abe," he said. "Only for a week, Morris," Abe corrected, "and then we'll sell it again." "Whose order do I write it to, Abe?" Morris inquired. "I forgot to ask that," Abe replied. "Gunst & Baumer?" Morris asked. "They ain't the owners of it, Morris," said Abe. "They're only the brokers. Maybe Sol Klinger is selling it to the stock exchange people, and they're selling it to us," Morris suggested. "Sol Klinger ain't going to sell his. He's going to hang on to it." "Maybe it's this young fellow what I see there, Morris, only I don't know his name." "Well, then, I'll make it out to Potash and Perlmutter, and you can endorse it when you get there," said Morris. At this juncture a customer entered, and Abe took him into the showroom while Morris wrote out the check. For almost an hour and a half Abe displayed the firm's line, from which the customer selected a generous order, and when at last Abe was free to go down to Gunst & Baumer's, it was nearly 12 o'clock. He put on his hat and coat and jumped on a passing car. It was not until he had traveled 2 blocks that he remembered the check. He ran all the way back to the store, and tearing the check out of the checkbook where Morris had left it, he dashed out again and once more boarded a Broadway car. In front of Gunst & Baumer's offices, he leaped wildly from the car to the street, and, escaping an imminent fire engine and a hose cart, he ran into the doorway and took the stairs 3 at a jump. On the second floor of the building was Hill, Arkwright & Thompson's sales room, where a trade sale was in progress, and the throng of buyers collected there overflowed onto the landing. But Abe elbowed his way through the crowd and made the last flight in 2 seconds. "Is Mr. Fiedler in?" he gasped as he burst into the manager's office of Gunst & Baumer's suite. "Mr. Fiedler went out to lunch," the office boy replied. "He says you should sit down and wait, and he'll be back in 10 minutes." But Abe was too nervous for sitting down, and the thought of the customer's room with its quotation board only agitated him the more. "I guess I'll go downstairs to Hill, Arkwright & Thompson's," he said, "and give a look around. I'll be back in 10 minutes." He descended the stairs leisurely and again elbowed his way through the crowd into the sales room of Hill, Arkwright & Thompson. Mr. Arkwright was on the rostrum, and as Abe entered he was announcing the next lot. "Look at them carefully, gentlemen," he said. "An opportunity like this seldom arises. They are all fresh goods, woven this season for next season's business. Foulards silks of exceptional good design and quality." At the word silks, Abe started and made at once for the tables on which the goods were piled. He examined them critically. As he did so, his mind reverted to the half-tone cuts in the Daily Cloak and Suit Record. Here was a rare chance to lay in a stock of piece goods that might not recur for several years, certainly not before next season had passed. "It's to close an estate, gentlemen," Mr. Arkwright continued. "The proprietor of the mills died recently, and his executors have decided to wind up the business. All these silk foulards will be offered as one lot. What is the bid?" Immediately competition became fast and furious, and Abe entered into it with a zest and excitement that completely eclipsed all thought of the stock exchanges or copper shares. The bids rose by leaps and bounds, and when half an hour later Abe emerged from the fray, his collar was melted to the consistency of a pocket handkerchief, but the light of victory shone through his perspiration. He was the purchaser of the entire lot, and by token of his ownership he endorsed the $2,500 check to the order of Hill, Arkwright & Thompson. The glow of battle continued with Abe until he reached the showroom of his own place of business at 2 o'clock. "Well, Abe," Morris cried, "did you buy the stock?" "Huh?" Abe exclaimed, and then, for the first time since he saw the silk foulards, he remembered Interstate Copper. "I was to Wasserbauer's restaurant for lunch," Morris continued, "and in the cafe I seen that thing with the baseball comes out of it, Abe." "The tickler," Abe croaked. "That's it," Morris went on. "Also, Sol Klinger was looking at it, and he told me Interstate Copper was up to 3 already." Abe sat down in a chair and passed his hand over his forehead. "That's the one time when you give it us good advice, Abe," said Morris. "Sol says we may make $3,000 yet." Abe nodded. He licked his dry lips and essayed to speak, but the words of confession would not come. "It was a lucky day for us, Abe, when you seen B. Shightless," Morris continued. "Of course, I ain't saying it was all luck, Abe, because it wasn't. If you hadn't seen the opportunity, Abe, and practically made me go into it, I wouldn't have done nothing, Abe." Abe nodded again. If the guilt he felt inwardly had expressed itself in his face, there would have been no need of confession. At length he braced himself to tell it all, but just as he cleared his throat by way of a prelude, Morris was summoned to the cutting room and remained there until closing time. Thus, when Abe went home, His secret remained locked up within his breast, nor did he find it a comfortable burden, for when he looked at the quotations of curb securities in the evening paper, he found that Interstate Copper had closed at 4.5, after a total day's business of 60,000 shares. The next morning Abe reached his store more than 2 hours after his usual hour. He had rolled on his pillow all night, and it was almost day before he could sleep. "Why, Abe," Morris cried when he saw him, "you look sick. What's the matter?" "I feel mean, Morris," Abe replied. "I guess I eat something what disagrees with me." Ordinarily Morris would have made rejoinder to the effect that when a man reached Abe's age he ought to know enough to take care of his stomach, but Morris had devoted himself to the financial column of a morning newspaper on his way downtown, and his feelings toward his partner were mollified in proportion. "That's too bad, Abe," he said. "Why don't you go see a doctor?" Abe shook his head and was about to reply when the telephone bell rang. "That's Sol Klinger," Morris exclaimed. "He said he would let me know at 10 o'clock what this Interstate Copper opened at." He darted for the telephone in the rear of the store, and when he returned his face was wreathed in smiles. "It's come up to 5 already," he cried. "We make it $2,500. While Morris was talking over the phone, Abe had been trying to bring his courage to the sticking point, and the confession was on the very tip of his tongue when the news which Morris brought forced it back again. He rose wearily to his feet. "I guess you think we're getting rich quick, Morris," he said, and repaired to the bookkeeper's desk in the firm's private office. For the next 2 hours and a half he dodged about, with one eye on Morris and the other on the rear entrance to the store. He expected the silk to arrive at any moment, and he knew that when it did the jig would be up. It was with a sigh of relief that he saw Morris go out to lunch at 12:30, and almost immediately afterward Hill, Arkwright, and Thompson's truckman arrived with the goods. Abe superintended the disposal of the packing cases in the cutting room, and he was engaged in opening them when Miss Cohen, the bookkeeper, entered. "Mr. Potash," she said, "Mr. Perlmutter wants to see you in the showroom." "Did he come back from lunch so soon?" Abe asked. "He came in right after he went out," she replied. "I guess he must be sick. He looks sick." Abe turned pale. "I guess he found it out," he said to himself, as he descended the stairs and made for the showroom. When he entered he found Morris seated in a chair with the first edition of an evening paper clutched in his hand. "What's the matter, Morris?" Abe said. Morris gulped once or twice and made a feeble attempt to brandish the paper. "Matter?" he croaked. "Nothing's the matter. Only we are out $2,500, that's all." "No, we ain't, Morris," Abe protested. "What we are out in one way we make in another." Morris sought to control himself, but his pent-up emotions gave themselves vent. "We do, hey?" he roared. "Well, maybe you think because I took your fool advice this once that I'll do it again." He grew red in the face. "Gambler!" he yelled. "Fool! You shed my blood. What? You want to ruin me, hey?" Abe had expected a tirade, but nothing half as violent as this. "Morris," he said soothingly, "don't take it so particular." He might as well have tried to stem Niagara with a shovel. "Ain't the cloak and suit business good enough for you?" Morris went on. "Must you go throwing away money on stocks from stock exchanges?" Abe scratched his head. These rhetorical questions hardly fitted the situation, especially the one about throwing away money. "Looky here, Morris," he said, "if you think you scare me by this theater acting, you're mistaken. Just calm yourself, Morris, and tell me what you heard it. I ain't heard nothing." For answer, Morris handed him the evening paper. "Sensational failure in Wall Street" was the red letter legend on the front page. With bulging eyes Abe took in the import of the leaded type, which disclosed the news that Gunst & Baumer, promoters of Interstate Copper, having boosted its price to 5, were overwhelmed by a flood of profit-taking. To support their stock, Gunst and Baumer were obliged to buy in all the Interstate offered at 5, and when at length their resources gave out, they announced their suspension. Interstate immediately collapsed and sold down in less than a quarter of an hour from 5 bid, 5 1/32 asked, to a quarter bid, 3/8 asked. Abe handed back the paper to Morris and lit a cigar. "For a man what has just played his partner for a sucker, Abe," Morris said, "you take it nice and quiet." Abe puffed slowly before replying. "After all, Morris," he said, "I was right." "You was right!" Morris exclaimed. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Morris," Abe went on, "I figured it out right. I says to myself when I got that check for $2,500, if I buy this here stock from stock exchanges and we make money, Morris will go pretty near crazy. He'll want to buy it the whole stock exchange full from stocks, and in the end it will bust us. On the other hand, Morris, I figured it out that if we bought this here stock and lose money on it, then Morris will go crazy also and want to murder me or something." He paused and puffed again at his cigar. "So, Morris," he concluded, "I went down to Gunst & Baumer's building, Morris. But instead of going to Gunst & Baumer, Morris, I went one flight lower down to Hill, Arkwright & Thompson's, Morris. And I didn't buy it Interstate Copper, Morris, but I bought it instead Silk Foulard's, Morris. $7,500 worth for $2,500, and it's laying right now up in the cutting room." He leaned back in his chair and triumphantly surveyed his partner, who had collapsed into a crushed and perspiring heap. "So, Morris," he said, "I'm a gambler, hey? I shed your blood, what? I ruin you with my fool advice, ain't it?" Morris raised a protesting hand. "Abe," he murmured huskily, "I done you an injury. It's me what's the fool. I was carried away by B. Scheidless's making his money so easy." Abe jumped to his feet. "Holy smokes!" he cried, and dashed out of the showroom to telephone in the rear of the store. He returned a moment later with his cigar at a rakish angle to his jutting lower lip. "It's all right, Morris," he said. "I rung up the Kosciuszko Bank, and the $275 check went through all right." "Sure it did," Morris replied, his drooping spirits once more revived. "I deposited at 11 o'clock yesterday morning. I don't take no chances on getting stuck, Abe. I only hope you didn't get stuck on them Foulards neither." Abe grinned broadly. "You needn't worry about that, Morris," he replied. "Stocks from stock exchanges, maybe I don't know it, Morris, but stocks from Silk Foulards, I do know it, Morris, and don't you forget it." End of chapter 8.